the original screwed-up dictator of
yes.
China. And apparently the reason they fell to the Red Chinese was largely due to incompetence of Chiang Kai-shek in running the country previously.
Right.
He didn't have a lot of friends. I mean, he really messed up. And somehow that morphed from a dictatorship to democracy. I don't know how that happened.
Time, increased technology, the ability for people to talk to one another, and just a different mindset. They were anti-communists, and they were not anti-communists simply because they disagreed with communism as an economic system. The culture of Taiwan was anti-communist in the sense of being
anti-dictatorship.
Anti-dictatorship,
Yeah.
right, I guess is anti-authoritarian. And so, there were probably not a whole lot of friends of
Chiang Kai-shek.
Chiang Kai-shek in Taiwan, even when he was ruling the island.
Yeah. Probably so.
So it took a period of time, but I don't know. One wonders whether or not. And here's another angle to all of this as well. It's a given that the Americans are going to defend, or it should be a given that the Americans are going to defend Taiwan if it's attacked by communist China. But at some point in time, deterrence starts to lose its effectiveness when the other side no longer believes that that's what you're going to do.
Right.
So the whole idea of deterrence. This is why I actually think that in a kind of a strange way, Donald Trump's diplomacy and his own personality and his character, I think, contributed to moving the American agenda forward when he was the president, because he had this sense of being unpredictable.
Right.
So all of the things that people criticized him for actually worked in his favor on the international field, because people would think, okay,
better not make him angry.
Let's not take any chances. We don't really know how he's going to react, right?
Yeah.
So deterrence only works if the other side believes what you might do, that you're actually going to do it, that there's a reasonable chance. So the more that the Chinese government provokes the Americans and the international community in international waters, without an effective response, then the greater the likelihood of them being willing to roll the dice on a place like Taiwan. But like you say, I don't really think that the Chinese, the mainline Chinese, are going to do that, because I don't think that they want to tangle with the Taiwan military. But there are other opportunities for the Chinese to expand militarily without confronting Taiwan. And even without the military, look at all of the agreements that they're breaking in Hong Kong.
Right. And the countries they're taking over in Africa. I mean, this is the...
Economically,
Yeah, this is the ultimate in economic imperialism. I mean, for people who don't know, the new Silk Road, so to speak, is that China is becoming the world's leading trading nation. If you look at the difference between 2000 and 2020, like in 2000, the United States was the main trading nation. Now it's China all over the world, and they're taking over countries, at least their natural resources, in many parts of Africa. They go into poor countries, Papua New Guinea, places like that, and they loan them billions of dollars that they can never pay back. They don't have the economy to generate the funds. They loan them the money to build their infrastructure to help their people. And then they can't pay them back. And they say, well, then I guess we'll take over your magnesium, or we'll take over some other element of your society. So they're essentially economically colonizing much of the world.
Right. Well, this is a tactic that the Soviets used fairly effectively for a period of time as well.
Oh, okay.
And until a number of these African countries started to exercise their own independence, and they would nationalize industries.
That'd be
and of
great.
course, it's the old story of if I loan you, $100 and you don't pay me back, I have a problem, or you have a problem. Okay, if I loan you $1 billion and you don't pay me back, I have the problem, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the idea of that the Chinese are investing all over the place and lending money all over the place and that it's problematic, but it's not as simple as I think people are thinking. And to a certain degree, I mean, what are the Chinese going to do if
Papua New Guinea says,
sorry,
go
we're
to
not
heck.
paying you back, can't pay you back, and oh, you want to take over this this company or this company? No, I don't think so. We're just going to nationalize it.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Are they going to invade?
Yeah, good question.
So I don't know entirely that that's the best strategy for them. And all of this, Tom, I think raises a very interesting question, and one that I have not heard a satisfactory answer to. And that is, what exactly is it that China wants?
Well, their official statement, of course, is to become the world's leading nation by the 100th anniversary of their takeover of power, which would be 2049. And it is interesting, Joseph, that so many of our targets for net zero are 2050. You know, I don't think that's a coincidence. But Rich and others, and I suspect you, don't think they're going to achieve that. Become the world's leading country by 2049.
Well, I suppose it depends on how you define leading country. Do I think that the Chinese are going to take over the world? No, I don't. Even if they wanted to, even if that was the end game, I mean, there's a certain element of fantasy to the idea that we're going to take over the world. You know, we may become, or they may become the dominant force in the world, like the Americans have been for a number of years post World War II. Is that their ultimate goal? I don't know, because even in the case of the United States, to a certain degree, the role that they took on post World War II was really forced on them. It was not something that they were seeking. It was something that they felt after the war, or as a consequence of the war and the lead up to the war, that they were really the only country that could exercise enough influence to prevent anything like that from happening again.
Partly because their infrastructure wasn't ruined the way it was throughout Europe.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. So for them, it wasn't a question of, well, we want to rule the world. It was a question of, well, we don't want to have to go through this again, and we don't think that it's right for the world to go through this again. And so we're going to we're going to flex our muscles when necessary, and we're going to ensure that we have the strength, the power, economically and militarily, to flex our muscles in order to protect a certain amount of to enforce a certain amount of stability and good behavior in the world.
And generally, it was successful.
Yeah, not perfect, but
and it turned enemies into allies. You know, Germany and Japan, Italy. I mean, these became allies. And I think that from that point of view, it was a huge success.
Sure.
Just in our last few minutes, I'm hoping we can address one other topic that you had an intriguing solution to the other day. And that is the hacking. The Five Eyes, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the United States, and Great Britain, they named and shamed China as sponsoring hackers, which had gone in and ruined a lot of our, it wrecked a lot of the energy reliability for a certain period of time. It interfered with pipeline shipments, things like that. Their naming and shaming, I don't think that has a big impact on China, but you actually had an interesting alternative suggestion that they should engage in. You were saying they should hack them back, and then they would pay attention.
Yes. Yeah, they should look, it's a form of warfare, undeclared, for sure. But I don't see any reason why, if they're going to bomb our cities, we shouldn't be bombing their cities.
Yeah, or turn off our pipelines.
If they're going to interfere with our electrical grid, well, why wouldn't we interfere with their electrical grid?
Yeah, and yet it seems like that's beyond the pale, that nobody in politics is even talking about it.
Yeah, I believe in morality and all of that stuff, but I also believe that you have an obligation to defend the interests of your country and the interests of the people that you're governing over. And if that means, from time to time doing unsavory things, well, I mean, I can think of worse things to be doing. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, if they're going to play silly bugger with our infrastructure, then we should be doing it in equal proportion to them. And we shouldn't be shy about it. In fact, what we should be doing is we should be, if I was the president of the United States, okay, and I suspected this was happening, I wouldn't be doing this through quiet diplomacy. I'd do a speech to the nation, and I'd say, here's the evidence. I'll lay it out. And my message to the Chinese government is very simple. If this happens again, you can expect that it's going to start to happen to you.
Yeah.
And they're going to.
Biden doesn't seem strong enough to do that, though.
Well, but it's a different. We just live in a different era. Could we, as the population, would we have supported a blockade of Cuba in 1962 if we were talking about it happening today? I don't know. So so we come back to the discussion about deterrence. Okay, very easy to threaten, but if you're not prepared to follow through with your threats, then eventually your enemies are going to catch on to that. And that makes for a less stable, more dangerous world.
So we'd have to be prepared to go in and hack their pipelines or energy or electricity infrastructure and actually shut a couple of cities down.
And we absolutely have the capability of doing that. Probably more so than the Chinese government does.
One thing I was very happy to hear, about 3 weeks ago, was a speech by Aaron O'Toole about China. And he was very definite. It really took me off guard. A friend of mine out at the campground, he showed me, he said, have you seen what O'Toole just said about China? Like, he's actually standing up far more than I expected. What do you think of that?
Good for him. And is this his personal, are these his personal feelings? Like, is he personally committed? I don't know. But I do know that he has people around him that are saying, hey, you need to be talking tougher on this, even if it's just for domestic political reasons. Any reason for me, any time that a government, senior politician speaks truth to power, in this case was how I would describe it, I think is a good thing. And I think that's what we need to be doing more of in the case of China. It's time for us, we don't have to go to war here. We don't have to, fire missiles at them or anything like that. And nobody's talking about that, but we do need to get tough. And we do need to design a strategy, not unlike how we dealt with the Soviet Union for a number of years, and we need to be serious about it.
I really like the idea of boycotting the Chinese Olympics and telling everyone why, and the fact that we're going to recruit other countries to do the same. Did it have much? You say it did have an effect on the Soviet Union.
Well, for sure it did. They were very upset about it at the time, and of course, tit for tat, the Warsaw Bloc, the Soviet bloc, ended up boycotting the American Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984. Yeah. Which was a pretty good indication that they were bothered by it. Right. Good point. Yeah. So that's a good note to end the show on, actually, is not to just roll over and let China do whatever they want, but to simply stand up to them on a number of ways. I think the best one you named for sure, besides hacking their infrastructure if they ever do it to us again, is to boycott the Olympics. Yeah, really great idea. Well, this is Tom Harrison, my co-host Joseph Benamy, signing out from Exploratory Journeys. Tune in next week for another exciting episode.